Hey, how you doing? It's DecepySwag, and today I wanted to talk to y'all about the big news of the prize pools for SNK World Championship, aka SWC, as well as some other events. Felt like this was a big deal worth talking about, but before we do so, as always, if you've been enjoying the content on the channel, then please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more, and don't forget to tap that bell icon. So if you haven't heard the good news, SNK made a big announcement for SWC prize pools. Fatal Fury Seal the Wolves will have a total prize pool of $2.5 million, with the champion taking home $1.5 million. Now that's something we already knew about, but still needed mentioning. But where the new info comes from is just recently they announced that alongside the crazy pot for Fatal Fury, there is also a major cash for other SNK titles that I personally wasn't expecting them to do. So first up, let's talk about the King of Fighters 15. For my KOF folks out there, I'm happy to share with you all that KOF 15 at SWC this year will have a prize pool of $1 million, with the champion taking home $500K. If you don't remember, the winner of last year's SWC Lagia took home $50,000, which, let me be clear, that ain't half bad at all. 50K is a lot of money, and any one of us here would love to have that in our bank accounts. But now seeing that get bumped up to a smooth $500,000, that's kind of crazy, I'm not gonna lie. However, that's not all. Samurai Showdown, if you don't remember, will also be at SWC, and that alone was a pretty big deal when it was announced, and still is a big deal. Again, super happy for the Sam Show community finally getting a chance to be featured on such a huge stage. Now with them comes the news of their prize pool, and that being a total of $500,000, with the winner taking home $250,000. That's $250,000 for first place. Once again, life-changing money. But that's not all, it doesn't end there. There's also pot bonuses for events like Combo Breaker 2025, with Fatal Fury getting a pot bonus of $24K, meaning each of the top 8 players going home with $3,000, KOF 15 getting a pot bonus of $10,000, and Samurai Showdown getting a pot bonus of $7,500. Also, for the Brussels Challenge Major Edition this year, Fatal Fury is getting a pot bonus of $16,000, with each of top 8 players getting $2,000, KOF 15 gets a pot bonus of $7,500, and Samurai Showdown getting a pot bonus of $5,000. So yeah, SNK is supporting these tournaments and these games heavy in the tournament scene, and you love to see it. Now, I've mentioned this before on my Twitter that this kind of support is something that genuinely is a huge win for the community. Many of you that have been in the community for years and years know that when it came to fighting games, there wasn't much money in it till recently, within I'd say around the last decade or so, and even less when it came to SNK games, unfortunately. So seeing this type of cash flow be presented with these games is amazing, but also about damn time. There's been many folks that for years were traveling from state to state, country to country, competing in these games to win and not walk away with crazy amounts of money. It definitely was an example of doing it for the love of the game, doing it for the culture. Now finally, there's an incentive for all the headaches that come with traveling for these events. A worthwhile prize at the end of it all. That's not to say that competing to prove you're the best and stuff isn't worthwhile or worth it. But at the end of the day, we can all agree that a couple $1,000s goes a long way. Everyone wants to be paid for their hard work, especially when the prize is going upwards to $1 million. Something I wanted to touch on was why this is so important. Obviously, the amazing amount of money for these games is something that in itself is worth talking about, but I wanted to dive deeper and reference an older video I made some months back. Around 5 months ago, when Samurai Showdown was revealed to be at SWC, I think it was during Tokyo Game Show where we got the news. In my video, I talked about how this was such a big deal for Samurai Showdown and the community, and the implications that this could have for SWC moving forward potentially. I said that what I felt SNK could be doing was setting up SWC to have all 3 games there moving forward, having each community not feel neglected and be represented, which would make sense considering it's called SNK World Championships, so it should include multiple SNK titles. The thing is, when it comes to these companies, there's always the notion that there can't be multiple fighting IPs active at the same time getting support because it could interfere with one another, essentially competing with themselves. And to a degree, that is true in some aspect. Depending on the size and manpower of the company, it wouldn't be realistic or even sensible to try to have like multiple fighters out at the same time while trying to split dev support between them. Think of Capcom. They have a plethora of fighting game IPs, but really only one at a time gets majorly supported tournament wise, and that tends to just be Street Fighter, especially as of late. And there's definitely circumstances with that, I'll admit, but the point still applies. Or look at Bandai with Tekken 8 and Soul Calibur 6. Sure, Tekken is the most current game out, but that's not to say Soul Cal can't have that kind of support from them as well, like a major circuit similar to Tekken's. Obviously not to the same level, I guess, but still something they could have. Well, what's happening here with SNK seems to be different. Fatal Fury is obviously the main game right now that's going to be receiving updates, things like new content, i.e. characters, EOST updates, events, so on and so forth, you get the idea. To use wrestling terms, Fatal Fury is the one that's getting the major push. However, that doesn't mean games like KOF and now even Samsho can't get any love from a tournament aspect. They may not be receiving any more developer support, besides obviously like any bug issues or glitches and such, but the lifeblood of these games is the people. You all, you there watching my video right now, you watching Max, Justin, Punk, whoever, the folks on Twitter, the folks in the Twitch chat, YouTube, out in person, art, every one of y'all are the lifeblood of these games. So when you have things like major pop bonuses, not even necessarily to that degree of $1 million, but such a large amount that's life-changing, it's definitely a sign of support. It helps give the optics or the feeling that the developer cares about their players, about their fans. Frankly, it shows that they give a shit, that we put time and effort into their products, that this becomes for a lot of people their life. And this goes not just for SNK games, but for fighting games, period. Something that can happen is other groups or communities can feel neglected, can feel like they've been thrown to the wayside. It's one thing when maybe dev support stops in a game. That's a given. A game is only going to get so much support, especially with fighting games, because there's going to be a sequel or just a new game all entirely. But even when the tournament scene for that game kind of just gets ignored, it definitely hurts, because then it kind of feels like you've been thrown to the side. And what SNK is doing seems to be the opposite of that. Whether or not this continues to be a thing at SWC, I'm not sure. Maybe they end up not having all three there permanently going forward. That's something I might have to do a video on just talking about in itself. But what I do know is that regardless of how many of us may feel about the advertisements with Ronaldo in the game and Ganache and stuff, we can all agree that this is a major W for the community, encouraging folks to travel and compete, which in turn then leads to itself those competitors showcasing the game at a high level and showing newer folks how dope these games are. So I think that's something at least worth noting. Feel how you may feel about some things here and there, this here is definitely a feel good for the community. Before I go, I do want to mention that with these announcements, there are folks with the mindset that this will just make folks want to play just for the money and not play for the love of the game or the hobby, or they may be wondering how this could affect the community or if it'll have any real impact for the casual audience or folks that aren't competing, or even wondering just if it's a waste of time because they feel esports is a waste of time and not really fruitful. My mindset and thoughts on all of that is, in regards to people playing a certain game, and this applies to gaming in general that's competitive, the reason they go and pick up the game to me doesn't matter. Personally, I'm not too concerned. If someone's primary goal for competition is to get money and put food on the table, then so be it, do that. So long as there's a sense of respect for the IP and its community, then everything fine with me. I already explained a bit about the competitive aspect with players and how that can help get newer folks interested and grow a community, but just to go a bit further, a perfect example would be like, let's say EVO or CEO or some other major. Having these fighting games presented on the regular at events with a wave of players constantly allows these companies to advertise the game even post launch and well after to a new audience via streams on YouTube and Twitch. Think about the number of people watching, and then I dare you to take into account how many could be new folks seeing this game or the community for the first time. I do feel like the greater issue though comes in the form of folks' feelings on esports as a whole really, and that's a topic that would need its own dedicated video, diving into such a deep and broad topic. But that's something that predates even me, going back years and years to, if you really want to think about it, even before Street Fighter 4 days, all the way to the era of Daigo versus Alex Valle in the 90s, there's always been this back and forth about grassroots and esports. And I'm 29 years old and I've only gotten into fighting games competitively or knew about the FGC since 2018 or so. But even in this short amount of time, I've constantly seen this argument go back and forth. So maybe one day I'll make a video just talking about that and my thoughts on it. But yeah, as always, we've reached that part of the video where I ask y'all an important question, and that's, what are your thoughts? Are you planning on competing in any of these games? Have you been enjoying Fatal Fury, and how do you feel about these games getting these giant pop bonuses? Because personally, like I said, I think it's about damn time, and I'm just happy that we're finally getting something we deserve as a community. Comment down below your thoughts and I'll try to get back to you. Till next time, I'm DecepySwag. Later.